Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca. If you are new here, I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom. Today we are in my backyard. I'm going to be doing some winter sowing because you're outside playing. We are expecting a ton of rain tomorrow, so I'm going to take advantage to get some seeds into milk jugs, all of the like recycled fruit containers, anything like that. If you are interested in winter sowing, stick around. Don't forget to subscribe. I have a ton of garden content coming up, but let's get into it. In this video, I'm going to go step by step into winter sowing. So first, what is winter sowing if you've never done it before? It's a gardening technique where seeds are planted in containers outside. Typically something that you've recycled, like the most recognized I've seen is with recycled milk jugs, recycled fruit jugs, basically anything that can create a mini greenhouse. These are sown typically during winter time, and the seeds will germinate when they're ready and pop up during spring. Some of the benefits of winter sowing would be it helps with the seed dispersal and cold stratification. It is super environmentally friendly. We're using recycled items, often things that you have already in your home. It's low cost and it honestly saves so much space inside your house. You're not using all of your space indoors for seeds, and then you can also have a stronger seed because it is already used to that harsh weather. Let's get into some of the supplies that we're going to need to start our winter sowing. Some of the supplies we are going to be using are a lot of milk jugs. I have recycled orange jugs. I have a lot of fruit containers. I have I believe that's a meal ready to go from Costco, and I just saved the container. You can flip it over. It's really not that deep. Honestly, you would want something a little bit deeper. I have a ton of seeds. I picked these up recently at Dollar Tree, and yes, I've grown with them for several years. I've never had any issues. You're going to need some sort of box cutter or knife, and then a container to mix your soil in, as well as something to poke drainage holes. I'm using a screwdriver. Use what you have on hand. And then I grabbed some popsicle sticks because I'm going to be labeling inside the containers, and you're also going to want to label the outside. It's totally up to you, your preference. A lot of people will actually recommend using duct tape. I have seen people use painter's tape, saying it's easier to take off in the long run, and you can also reuse these. I would like to use these for multiple seasons. So the first thing you're going to do is take your container and you're gonna cut around the container. You're gonna leave quite a few inches on the bottom, and with this juice container I was a little bit more lenient with how much space I left at the bottom versus the top, and you can see you're going to not cut all the way around. You want some place to keep it attached and open. So with the milk jugs, my just kind of baseline is where I was going to cut was a few, maybe about an inch or 3/4 of an inch below the milk jug. I actually still wanted to be able to use the handle on the milk jug, so that leaves plenty of room for my roots to get started. Take your time. It doesn't have to be perfect all the way around, but it does take some finagling with the milk jug, and you'll see here the handle is still totally in operation, which is exactly what I want. And then don't forget to poke drainage holes on the bottom before you get happy and start planting all of your seeds in here. I did this last week and totally had to flip them over, praying that I didn't move any of my poor little seedlings. So poke your drainage holes. I can heat up a screwdriver and poke that through the plastic. You can use the box cutter, and it's okay if it gets dented. These are so malleable. You can literally just poke the milk jug back into its original form. Use what you have on hand. Obviously, proceed with caution. I used the box cutter. I ended up thinking that was the easiest, and then I just kind of widened the hole with the screwdriver, but you definitely want drainage because you don't want your seeds to just be stuck in water. So now that our containers are prepped and ready, we're going to go ahead and prep our soil. Putting seeds in dry soil would obviously not yield the best results, so we're going to make sure that our soil is very well moistened. You don't want it to be sopping wet like soup, but you want it to be able to maintain some sort of moisture. Use whatever you have on hand. You can buy it at your local hardware store. You can make your own. There's so many different variations to soil and your zone depending on those things. So just use your best judgment, and it doesn't need to be that complicated, but just make sure that it's moist enough that it will hold, but it's not sopping wet like soup. So I'm going to go ahead and prep my soil, and I'm going to mix up enough. I want to make sure that I leave enough soil in the bottom of these containers. eventually the soil is going to go into the garden beds. So I feel like there's no harm in making sure that you have quite a bit in there to make sure that I have enough space for my roots to get established. So I'm going to go ahead and prep that, and then we are going to start happy planting. So you can see here the consistency, it's still retaining water, but I can still squeeze a little bit of moisture out. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling my containers. You do want to fill them up quite a bit. You don't want to have just about an inch or two. I would say I filled mine up practically to the very line of where I cut. Again, these are going to grow, so you want to leave a little bit of space for them, but you definitely want to have enough depth inside each container. So I'm going to go ahead and fill those up, and you'll know right away if your drainage holes are working. Mine were working totally fine. Depending on how many seeds you are starting, and we all know that seed math is a real thing, so depending on how many seedlings you're starting, you can actually split your containers with a popsicle stick. I don't remember where I saw this, but I thought it was a genius idea. So just kind of finagle it in there, and then you can do one seed on one side and one seed on the other. I am using these containers as we drink milk as a family. You can actually go to a local coffee shop or something like that and ask if they have any extra, and I'm sure they'd be more than willing to have those be given to you instead of recycling them. They'll go to good use, and I'm sure you could get quite a bit. So be a little resourceful when you're looking for them, or like my family's doing, we're just using them as we go through milk. I will label these on the inside, so I'm using one popsicle stick to kind of divide it into a little mini bed so that I know each side is a different plant. And then I'm sticking the popsicle sticks straight in. You can use plastic knives, you can use almost anything. I've seen people cut up yogurt cups, and you're going to want to pay attention on the back of each of your seedling packet. It will tell you how far down each seedling needs to be planted, half an inch, quarter of an inch. Every seed's going to be different. I just use the back of a Sharpie and make a little hole, put your seedlings in, drop them in one at a time as best you can. Some of them are super tiny, and sometimes chaos gardening is kind of my jam. That's how I garden my wildflowers. I always throw them in the beds and just hope for the best, and they come up whenever they come up. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Again, I would recommend labeling on the inside of the jug as well as the outside, and you can even go a step further. You'll see here in a second, you can put the amount of days it will take for the seeds to germinate, and all of that information is on the back of your package, and trust me, it is actually very helpful, so you'll know when to check these. These were 50 and I think 55, so I just wrote 50, the date that I did them. And then once everything is all ready, this is the fun part, you're going to try your very best to make sure that the milk container is sort of aligned. You're going to put the two halves together, close it up with tape. You can buy duct tape at Dollar Tree. I think you can get a larger roll at your local hardware store. Use what you have. I have had no issues with the painter's tape. It does take a little bit of finagling to make it stick, and I do go back once I have them all together and make sure that they are really closed. You're going to try to trap in as much heat as you can, and do not forget to save the tops. You can save them if you wish for a different project, but the idea of winter sowing is that you're going to keep the caps off and allow any sort of precipitation from rain or snow, anything like that is going to actually fall inside the jug. So this is a wonderful, wonderful way, and budget friendly, honestly, to start a garden, especially someone like me. I'm super forgetful, so tending to baby seedlings when I don't have the time or we're during busy season, I think it's a wonderful way to start something. It's kind of hands off, and I love the idea that I can get a jump start on my garden by just taking a few days of work. You can prep one day and start your seeds the next day. You can do this all in one day like I did. Do it how you wish, but I think this is such an amazing way to start seedlings, and honestly this has been around for so long and it's so cost effective. I feel like every year I buy a greenhouse, a smaller one, and then it blows away in the wind after a season or two, and the larger ones that we're looking at building eventually cost so much money. So in the meantime, this is an amazing way to give something a second life and also further your garden. So round 1 of my winter sowing is done. I have about 2 more rounds. We're expanding the garden quite a bit this year, so I'm super excited. I tested out this strawberry container. I'll show you here in just a moment. And then the takeout food container from Costco. I want to see if anything actually germinates in here, given that it is sort of a shallow container. Let's talk about location. Where you place these is going to be very important. It is during winter, so if you're expecting snow or rain or heavy winds like we do, you definitely want these to be in a place that does get quite a bit of sun, but you also want them to be protected. So I put them in the middle of my garden beds so that they do not fly around, and I love that they are in this location very close to my garden. We're going to be rehabbing this entire space, so if you are interested in following along to see how these turn out, if they germinate, and the entire process of planting and happy gardening, I would love it if you stick around. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next video.